Okay, I want to jump in right here and say, okay, I can understand on a deeper level why this idea might be flawed. So let me add another layer on top of this. The government is deceiving people, okay? This is a bigger hand than we expected it to be. Why is it funny? It's not funny. Okay. It's crazy. The government you guys. The gov has put on a charade. Society has put on a charade that it is something that is not. And that's what the true problem is. Okay, the true problem is we have been convinced that there is a pandemic by these evil people. We have been convinced who created this virus. We have been convinced so many things. People have been convinced things that are not true. That is what the Antichrist is. Anything that you've been told that is not true, and you go along with it like it's true. This is so deep, you guys. Wow. Okay, I thought I had something to say, but that is the layer I wanted to add. The layer I wanted to add to this video right there. Okay. Whoa, it's so deep. Okay, wow. The layer that I wanted to add right there is, you're right, we should be waking people up to the fact that the government has been brainwashing people to do what it wants you to do. Yes, we should be waking people up to the fact that the system that we are following as if it is society is trying to control people and not letting people control themselves. Okay, that is the real problem here. The government is trying to control people when people on an individual level should have sovereignty. Shoot, come to an even smaller, states are trying to control people because they don't believe people know how to control themselves. Let's go on an even smaller level. Communities, right? Your community, your city, your town, try to control people because it doesn't believe that people know what's best for them. On a smaller level, when we talk about like if you live in a neighborhood, your neighborhood, what do they call it? Neighborhood council? Your neighborhood council people believe that you don't know what's best for you. Therefore, that committee is created to make sure your neighbor doesn't paint their fence purple and you don't paint your fence green, because that wouldn't go together, right? It's like if you knew that them having a purple fence is what's best for them and them having a green fence is what's best for them, it should be okay. And again, this is the problem. I guess we get into these systems on a residential level, since I'm speaking specifically about that. We get into certain neighborhoods because we like that we will all abide by the same laws and rules. Okay, and then we can go on an even bigger level. We like to be in certain religions because they abide by certain rules, but the thing is, you should not be telling someone else what to do. If somebody likes those rules in that religion, then you should let them be okay with it. If somebody does not like the rules of that religion and they choose to not be a part of that religion, you should be okay with it. This is the problem. We don't trust that people know how to do what's best for them, right? In religion, the whole idea of converting people. If I tell you about my religion and then the person says, it's not really for me, but I'm happy that you found your truth, and you got upset and was like, no, you have to believe this religion because this is the only religion and you have to follow this religion or you're going to go to hell and you're going to be damned and you're not going to ascend, you're not going to rise in consciousness, you're not going to be high vibrational. It's like, if the person doesn't want that, Then say, okay, thank you for your time. Thank you for hearing about my religion. Okay, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening about spirituality. The real problem here is that we are underneath a system that is trying to tell everybody, I know what's best for you, when on an individual level, we should be figuring out what's best for ourselves. That is what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying. Period. Okay, enjoy the rest of the video. Okay, so I'm still unpacking this download I just had. And the point that I'm at right now, sorry, my dog's about to come over. The point that I'm at right now, please, Michi, please, this was good. Okay, we were at government, okay? The fact that we create systems, remember I started at the cul-de-sac or the community. If you have a neighborhood, how we stay in neighborhoods and they have like neighborhood guidelines that are kind of something like everybody has to have a white fence, or you're not allowed to paint your fence green and they're not allowed to paint their fence purple, right? If your community has something like that. That's what I'm talking about. And then on a larger scale, we have city or state laws that say you're allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. And then on a I guess country thing, this country has these laws and this country does not have these laws, right? So it has come to my realization, if we trust ourselves and we trust other people, if we trust ourselves to make the right decision for ourselves, and I trust my neighbors to make the right decision for themselves, it goes back to the idea of governments. Governments. The government. This idea of governments. We need governments, governments, governments. Break down the word government. Govern means to allow someone leadership, okay? Right? Like you can govern yourself, or you can let someone else govern you. Take governorship over you. I don't know. Okay, you know what I mean though. Govern. Something governs you. These set of rules govern you, guide you, right? But then again, you can govern yourself. You can create your own set of rules for yourself. But how it is right now, we're letting systems create rules for you. Government. Ooh. Okay, so realize we have different governments. Whoever is in charge, these negative entity elites who are in charge, they like the idea of having governments. You get this government and you have this government and you have that government and you have that government. What does that really mean? You have ownership over these people and how you run them. You have ownership over these people and how you run them. You have ownership over these people and how you run them. These are just different entities who want to have ownership over the people who live in that population or in that area, on that continent, in that state, in that country. Whoa, guys, do you get this? This is kind of big. And again, a lot of people are like, no, we need governments because if I have different ideas than that person, they're gonna do something that I don't like. Do you understand how crazy this is? Again, it goes back to, as long as you don't harm anybody, as long as your neighbor does not harm you, and as long as you do not harm your neighbor, as long as the people across the water do not harm you and you do not harm them, people should be allowed to do what they want. And again, it goes back to self-governance. Because if that person decides that they want to sit in their house and light themselves on fire, we have to trust and believe that they knew what was best for themselves. But that's the problem. We don't trust. I'm being funny, but that's, no, seriously. Again, mental health, okay, if somebody has mental health, if somebody is unfit to care for themselves, like they're mentally ill, and you know, but then again, that can be another way to manipulate somebody, because if you say, oh no, that person has depression, that person is depressed, so by your definition, you don't believe that person should have governship over themselves. This is what's happening to Britney Spears. That is why Britney Spears is coming back up. People are saying that she is not fit to take care of herself, but she's trying to prove that she is fit to take care of herself. Do we see why that is coming back up onto the world stage now? Because if she is not mentally ill and she really does have the capacity to take care of herself and her family and her brand, she should have the authority and the right to do that. And the same goes for humanity. Wow. If you on an individual level believe you know what is right for yourself and you have the capacity to make good decisions for yourself by your means and by your standards, you should be given that authority. And if somebody does not, this is such a big, I hope you guys see how big of a deal this is. This whole fight is about individual sovereignty. This whole fight is about individual sovereignty. We have governments in place because we don't believe in individual sovereignty. When the people, when the colonists, the pilgrims, when the pilgrims left the UK to find New World, they left the UK. That's why they say that the Queen of England owns everything. When the pilgrims left England because they said, we don't want to follow your rules anymore, they came to America and colonized new land and said, we're going to create our own rules. But in a way, they condemned themselves again by agreeing to have a system to govern them by, because people didn't believe they could govern themselves. Or maybe they did believe they could govern themselves, but maybe it was a numbers game. Maybe there were more people who were like, no, having an organization that tells us what to do and creates laws that we're going to live by is what I want to do. And then there was a group that said, no, I think we should be able to make laws on an individual level, right? As long as you don't hurt anybody, you should be able to make laws on an individual level. And then what happened, again, this brings me back to religion. So people who had the same morality, the same belief system said, you know what? Since we all abide by the same rules, since you believe X, Y, and Z, and I believe X, Y, and Z, and we enjoy hanging out with each other, maybe we should be called this organization. What do you guys think? And they're like, yeah, I like that name. I think we should become that organization. Okay, so the problem here happens when we begin to sect off and make smaller organizations. But I understand, like, there can be very positive things about organizations. You can come together and say, you know what, we're gonna save the dolphins, and then you guys all go save the dolphins, and that organization was good because you made good things happen. The problem comes when organizations come together and they're harming other people or disrupting other people's peace. This is the problem. Are we not understanding this? Seriously. But then again, when people begin to come together, they say, oh, we're big and bad now. We got a lot of numbers now. Now nobody can tell us what to do. And in fact, we can start taking what we want because no one's going to tell us no. This is it. This is it. But again, we have to go back to, as long as you don't harm anybody, You should be able to do what you want to do. Now, this is why cults are so big. Whoa. This is why cults are so big. Because if you have a cult leader and the cult leader can finesse everybody to believe what the cult leader thinks, then the cult leader is going to become the master of all those people, because all those people say, you know what, the ideas, thoughts, and belief that that cult leader has, I like that. I identify with that. So I'm going to do what that cult leader says. But then in the same breath, but see, this is how people can become manipulated to do things that are not real. OMG, is the government ran by a cult leader? This is getting deep. This is getting deep. This is getting deep. We're all being finessed by a system that made us think that they had the right ideology. And they started implementing, it started out simple, like, oh, it started out simple and then slowly began to get more and more and more and more complex. Is the government ran by a cult leader? Because otherwise, shouldn't everybody have the right to do what they want to do as long as it doesn't harm anybody else? Y'all, these are serious questions. So then why do we need a government? Have you guys asked yourself that question? If we trust that everyone can make the right decisions? So that means that if someone doesn't agree with what you say, there should be somewhere else for them to go, right? If they say, you know what, your rules and regulations, I don't agree with them, there should be, and I'm gonna leave, there should be somewhere else for them to go. The problem is there's no neutral territory. There's no neutral territory. If you're going to be on this continent and this side of the world, you're going to be a part of this country and this state. And this country and this state has these rules and regulations. That's why we have to get rid of the borders. Oh my God, guys, everything is opening up. That's why we have to get rid of the borders. That's why we cannot say, I mean, I get it. This, naming a country this, naming a state this was the original way for people to know, okay, you're in this location. Okay, you're in this location. It was never meant to be, you're here so you have to follow this. You're here so you have to follow that. Okay, this is getting deep. I'm gonna come back if I have more downloads.